Hi, everybody, and welcome. It's Friday, so it must be our weekly live show, Onwards and Upwards. We are so excited today on our live show for global nurses all over the world to have our expert legal panel today with us. We have Denise. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Tanya. How are you?
Hi there. Welcome. And Maria.
Good morning.
Hi, Maria. And last but not least is Anshu. Welcome, Anshu.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. And welcome to everybody who's joining us all over the world. We have thousands of nurses that watch our weekly show, Onwards and Upwards, every single week. And we have all different topics every week, everything that a nurse needs to know about coming to live and work in the United States. So we're excited to get started. Our topic for today is immigration, and we have an open chat. So this is your chance to pick the brains of the legal experts who are so gracious and so kind to give up their time. The reason why we do the show Onwards and Upwards is that we really want to give nurses an opportunity to ask immigration questions. It can be very confusing, very overwhelming, very scary, quite frankly, but also exciting. So now is your chance to ask any questions that you might have of the legal experts. And please stay on until the end of the show because we're going to be announcing the winner of our NCLEX scholarship. Every month we have an NCLEX exam paid for by Kinetics USA from our scholars. So please stay on until the end of the show to see whose name is drawn. And we will be announcing that at the end of the show. We have Saeem joining us, Belinda, Faisal, Saeem's from Saudi, Maria's got a question we're going to get to. Fazisa is from South Africa, my home country. Welcome. I was an immigrant as well. I know how hard this process is. And I see we have lots of questions in the chat and lots of questions that were posted before. So I'm going to get straight to the legal experts and we're going to get started. So first question. Denise, is the visa bulletin? We know that the visa bulletin came out. I think it was yesterday, actually. So this is good timing for the show. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe explain? We're going to leave this graphic on while you explain it, Denise. But can you maybe explain what is the visa bulletin? Why is it important for a nurse? And how do they look at this chart with the final action dates and the dates for filing of employment-based visas? What does it all mean?
Yes, perfect. Okay, so the visa bulletin is a bulletin that's prepared by the Department of State, the U.S. Department of State, every month, and they let us know in advance about a couple of weeks in advance what to expect for the next month. So that's why you're seeing the bulletin for February of 2022, even though we're still in January. And basically, there are only so many immigrant visas available for different immigrant visa classifications. So one can apply for an immigrant visa based on family, on political asylum, on other methods. And the one that applies to the nurses is employment-based. So on that chart, when a nurse is trying to determine whether or not an immigrant visa is going to become available for them, because that's truly when they can request it, they can obtain it from the government. They're going to look at the bulletin. And if you don't mind putting it up again, Tanya, so I can guide.
Yeah, let's put that up again.
Okay, perfect. So above these two tables, you will see that there's a family-based table, but you're not going to focus on that unless you have a family-based case. You're going to focus on the employment-based tables. And basically, nurses, Schedule A nurses fall under third. So whenever you hear EB3, what people are referring to is employment-based third preference category. All the nurses that are applying for registered nurse positions are going to fall under EB3. So that's the first column where you see whether you're first, second, third, you're going to fall under third. And then the columns next to that column, the all chargeability areas, are for all countries other than China, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, India, Mexico, Philippines. Those countries have their own column. So if you're from any of those countries, you're going to be looking at your specific column. So for example, if you're from the Philippines, you're going to be looking at the last column, not the first one. Again, all chargeability of all other countries. And you're going to see, for example, in this chart, which by the way, things have improved tremendously. So we're really happy to share that with you, that meaning more immigrant visas are going to become available. So if you look at the section where it says the Philippines, that column where it says C means current. C means that right now their immigrant visa is available for someone from the Philippines who is applying for a Schedule A nurse, registered nurse position. So again, third means third preference category under employment. So basically, these tables, these columns, they fluctuate. Sometimes you'll find a date, and other times you'll find a C, or even U, which means unavailable. So we don't want to see a U. Unavailable means there are no immigrant visas available. So if you're from the Philippines and you go to the third preference, you see the row and you see the letter C, that means that right now their immigrant visa is available. And if you have a case that's pending, that's already ripe, what I call ripe for obtaining your immigrant visa, meaning you're already done with the first part of the process, which is when a company petitions for you, and you're waiting for your appointment interview, for the immigrant visa, and you see the letter C, that means that now in February, there's a possibility that you will be scheduled for your interview. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for the officers to schedule someone for the interview. So it may go to March, to the bulletin for March. You may have to wait until March, but at least as of February, if you see the letter C and your case is already in queue for an appointment, an immigrant visa appointment, you will be going to the appointment. And if everything is in order, meaning if you meet all of the requirements, which you should at that point, because we've already passed the stage where we file a case with immigration, you will be receiving your immigrant visa and becoming a permanent resident. So if you're overseas, you will go to a consular interview. If you're physically in the United States, you will be adjusting your status from non-immigrant to immigrant. And basically, once you're an immigrant, that means you're a green card holder. That means you have your permanent residence.
Okay, thank you, Denise. That gave us a very clear, comprehensive understanding of the visa bulletin, because it can be very confusing for many nurses. And at least we know what the C means, and that's good. Visas available. And right now, there are visas available. So if you are interested in coming to the United States, there's no better time. There are visas available right now. There are many, many jobs all over the United States. You can apply to Kinetics USA, to our website, and our team are on standby to help you with your application. Anshu, what would you say so we have a question here from Mary. How does this affect Indian nurses if you're born in India?
Well, I mean, what we know right now is, the Indian backlog is almost 10-ish years. And it's unfortunate that there is such a backlog for Indian nurses. But what I always try to advise my clients is, okay, I understand there's a backlog, but go ahead and still get the process started so that you can still get in queue. And at some point, if, comprehensive immigration legislation is passed, then you'll at least be in queue for, an immigrant visa. Now, a couple of other tidbits I would add, if you are an Indian nurse and you maybe had a previous employer, and that sponsor is no longer willing to sponsor you, then you can try sponsoring with another employer and actually be able to recapture the priority date that was established in that initial case. So that helps you move forward in the queue. And then the last thing I think I would add, which I see a lot of my Indian nurses use, is the idea of cross-chargeability. Yes. So if you are an Indian nurse, and as explained earlier, if you are based on the visa bulletin, if you are an Indian nurse but you're married to, let's say, somebody from France, you can actually attach yourself to your spouse's country of birth, and that would actually put you in the all other category, which would probably make you current, if not current, much faster than the Indian backlog. So
yeah. Absolutely. And we have had many nurses who, if they're lucky enough to be married to somebody from another country, that have been able to use that cross-chargeability. Yes. Maria, you're back. I think you're having a little bit of a Wi-Fi issue.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but I'm back.
Welcome back. Okay, well, moving on to the next question, Maria. This one's for you. So we're getting a lot of questions. We have a question here from Irina. We have a question here from Michael. We have a question from Kumar. Same question coming through. On average, how long is the processing time for an EB3 green card for a nurse if the nurse has passed the NCLEX and is ready to file? Maria? Oh, goodness. I think Maria's having a Wi-Fi issue. She seems to be stuck. Denise, do you want to maybe take that question?
Sure, of course. So how long depends, again, where your country of birth is, or as she mentioned, I'm sorry, if you're married to someone who has a different nationality. So it typically takes, it's broken into two stages. So I'm going to break it down for you, and that way you have a better idea. So the first part of the process is for a company to file an immigrant petition for alien worker on behalf of the nurse. So you have to have the sponsor, a hospital or healthcare institution willing to sponsor you. So typically, the employers will request what's called premium processing service from immigration, so that immigration can render a decision in 15 days from the date of filing. So let's say that you've already provided all of your documents, and your documents meaning your educational documents, etc., your passport. The case is filed, let's say it's filed today. And when I say the case, I mean the immigrant petition for alien worker. Within 15 days of filing the case with immigration will make a determination. Let's assume that it's an approval, because usually it is if everything's in order. So the petitioner's I-140, the petitioner being the employer, their I-140 on your behalf will be approved. And that's the most important part of the process, because without that first step, you have no basis for your permanent residence case. So once the I-140 is approved and you have established a party date, the party date is when immigration receives that petition, okay, which I should have mentioned earlier. But as soon as the I-140 is filed, the petition for alien worker by the petitioner on your behalf, it establishes what's called a priority date. Those are the dates that appear on the visa bulletin, okay? And so once it's filed and immigration makes its decision and approves the case, then that takes about 15 days. Then immigration will notify the National Visa Center. Think of the National Visa Center as a secretary organizing all your documents and setting up your case for an interview at the U.S. consulate. So they're the middle person. Okay?
That's a good analogy. That's a great analogy, Denise.
Thank you, Tanya. So immigration will approve the I-140, the petitioner's I-140, and again, the petitioner is the employer, in 15 days. Then immigration will notify the National Visa Center that the case has been approved. That goes behind the scenes. We don't get involved in that part. That has to go from immigration to the National Visa Center. That part of the process can take about a month or so. So within a month, if there's an immigrant visa available for you, your category, your case, you will receive an email from the National Visa Center letting you know that they need certain documents from you, that you have to pay a fee bill in order for them to gather all those documents from you and start preparing your file for the interview at the U.S. consulate. So that part of the process takes about a month or so. Okay, so it's 15 days plus a month. Let's round off the 15 days to a month. So that's 2 months. Then once you provide all the documents, that's why it's important that you pay the fee bill and provide all your documents as soon as possible, responding to the National Visa Center's request. Then they will start organizing your file, and they will work towards scheduling your appointment at the U.S. consulate. Now, that doesn't mean that they can schedule it right away, because the U.S. consulate has to have availability. So the National Visa Center communicates directly with the U.S. consulates to determine when there's an available appointment for you to request to go to the interview and request your immigrant visa. That part of the process is where, it's a little bit uncertain, because the consulates have been opening, closing, they have a backlog, they're short-staffed. But this is what we have been going through for the past year, 2 years. And slowly but surely, they're working towards improving the availability of interviews at the U.S. consulate, slowly but surely. So I want all of you to be patient.
Which is the good news. We're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. Everybody who's watching, who's anxiously waiting for their consulate interviews, we're definitely seeing great inroads. Maria and Anshu, would you agree with that?
Yes.
You see?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We've had several, I think over 100 interviews scheduled in the last 30 to 60 days.
Yeah. Definitely exciting news. Sorry to interrupt you, Denise.
No, that's okay. So we're seeing that across the board, which is great. And so I would say from beginning to end, as long as the company has its prevailing wage determination, which I didn't mention in the beginning, that's part of the process that takes about 5 to 6 months to obtain a document from the Department of Labor that's required to file the I-140. As long as the company, the healthcare institution, has the prevailing wage, it could take about less than a year. And as long as there's an immigrant visa available for your category. So it could take less than a year. And I hope that things improve. But for now, that's to be conservative and to set your expectation. I would say within 10 months to a year, you will be a green card holder.
Okay, so there's the exciting news. I get chills for every nurse that is watching all over the world. There are lots of jobs available. There are lots of opportunities all over the United States. And Denise, as Denise says, you could be here in less than a year. So, so really exciting news for any nurse that's looking to come to the United States. We're going to just put up for a minute the success path, the Kinetics USA success path, which is basically like a roadmap. For many nurses, they don't know where to start. It's just so confusing. So check this out on the Kinetics USA website. I think this is a very useful tool for anybody who doesn't know where to start. First step is always the NCLEX, preparing for the interview, and then what Denise has just explained to us is that visa framework. Either you'll come on the TN visa or the green card. We haven't spoken about the TN very much today, and then you would have licensing, credentialing, get ready game plan, arrival sequence, and number 7 is what we want for everyone: enjoy and prosper. So that's kind of the roadmap that you would need to take. Okay, let's take some questions from the chat. So wow, we've got nurses joining from all over the world. Saim from Saudi, Belinda from Saudi, Yen is joining, lots of people. So Maria is asking a question. Good morning, my name is Maria Giesel. For a case transfer from Manila to Abu Dhabi, how long will it take? Maria, any idea how long that would take to transfer a case? Oh, goodness. Poor Maria's got a Wi-Fi issue. Anshu, do you want to take that question?
Sure. So I generally recommend, unless there is an extenuating circumstance, not to transfer your case, because
Absolutely.
that can delay your case. That can actually delay your ability to get rescheduled for an interview. So, I think I want to preface my response by first saying that, unless you absolutely have to, because maybe your contract is ending and that's the reason why you feel like you have to change your embassy. But otherwise, I see a very fluctuating timeline for that. Sometimes it can take a month or 2. Sometimes it can take up to 4 to 5 months. So, I know that's not a very specific answer, but again, it's a fluctuating answer because it's very dependent upon the embassy that you're trying to, you're changed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Anshu says, when you make that decision of which consulate you're going to be going to, really give it some considerable thought, because if possible, you don't want to be changing it midway through the process, because it really can have a significant delay in the timing. Thank you, Anshu. Okay. So Mary has a question. My daughter's 22 years old. Can she be qualified for the CSPA based on the calculation that I got in website? PD is 2018, pending petition for 13 days, visa available on July 2019. Please help if it is correct. Maria, do you want to take that question?
Sure. Yeah, I would say, the CSPA is very complicated and it's very specific. So I think she has all the right information there, but I'd have to really review the documents to give a specific answer. Generally speaking, if the I-140 was only pending for 13 days, that's the time you're going to add back into her age. So if she's already 22, she probably does not qualify.
Yeah.
But again, I'd have to really review the documents to give a definitive answer.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So it's a mathematical calculation, correct?
Correct.
That's what it really boils down to. Okay, Eli's in Mexico. Welcome. So Fadzi Sai is asking about the timing. So Fadzi Sai, we answered that question. And by the way, if anybody is interested, and really we encourage you to educate yourself about the process, I would encourage everybody to watch the shows, the Onward and Upward shows that we've done previously on the green card process, the consular green card process, adjustment of status green card process, on the TN process. There are recorded shows on our website, on our YouTube channel, on our social media, and it's everything that a nurse needs to know about those processes. And you can also download free booklets about those different topics on our website as well. This is free information for you. We just want to help. Bolanli is from the UK. Welcome. Bolanli is a regular viewer, and I see her name every week, and we love watching us every week. So Shamlin is saying hi. Okay, we've got more questions. Dan from Philippines. Susan is asking, I have my visa screen. Do I still need to get a transcript of records from my university, Andrew?
I mean, I don't think it would hurt to just take those with you when you go for your interview. But I've never. I think as long as you have a visa screen and it's valid, you should be okay. But I always like to over document than under document.
Okay, rather be cautious and pleasantly surprised. Okay,
Yes.
Noreen from the UAE is watching. Chenya from Nigeria. So fun to see everybody from all over the world and from Nigeria. Olawabani, I'm sorry, I probably got that name right. Okay, Simran's got a question. Simran, I had a green card before back in 2011. It's been 10 years since I left the United States. Will my past green card impact a new green card process? I still have active US nursing license, but not required IELTS. Under visa bulletin, I have a current date. Assuming that I have a job offer already, how long will it take to process the EB3 green card from beginning to end? So Simran, we answered the question about the timing. But Denise, do you think Simran would have an issue if there was a green card before that has lapsed?
There shouldn't be an issue. Because just because he had a green card in the past doesn't mean he's not eligible to apply for a new one. But he should definitely discuss his matter separately to see if maybe possibly he still his permanent residence card is still valid. It depends on how long he's been out of the United States. It depends on especially if he has an 11-year green card. He needs to definitely consult with one of us to see if maybe he still has a valid green card, and if not, he can qualify for filing a new one as long as he meets all of the requirements.
Okay, so Simran, that answers your question, and anyone else who had a similar question. Eileen's from the Philippines, Alfonso from Philippines, Mercy from Nigeria. Wow. Okay, so Shamlin is asking nurses, those who are working in the UK, if they want to come to the US, do you need an IELTS exam or need only NCLEX? So this is a good question, Shamlin. So it all depends on where you were educated. So if you were educated in the UK, no, you don't need the IELTS. But if you were educated, for example, in the Philippines or India or Nepal or something like that, then you would need to take the IELTS. And the good news with Kinetics USA is we have a free IELTS course. This is our part of the Kinetics Care Package. It is only for Kinetics nurses. We're the only direct hire company that does this. We actually pay for you to do an IELTS course to prepare you for the exam. We know that many nurses worry more about the IELTS exam than the NCLEX exam, and it's expensive. So we want to make sure that you pass. And I always encourage everybody to check out our IELTS Hero interviews, especially Bert. He's a nurse. He's just the most incredible, inspiring story. He failed the IELTS 7 times. Think of all the money he wasted. Then he came to Kinetics. He did our course and he passed on the 8th try. And he got an 8 in speaking and a 7 overall, which is a higher score than you even need. And for anyone who's struggling with the IELTS, check out his video because it is so inspiring and so encouraging. Okay, so we've got a question here about Expedite. Rachel is asking, why does the Expedite take so long, Maria? There's a lot of confusion about the Expedite process for nurses.
Yeah, so the Expedite can be requested at the embassy, and it's discretionary. So, excuse me, the Department of State has recently said they would expedite interviews for nurses. There was some guidance that came out about 60 days ago regarding that. We've already been requesting expedites. I'm sure Denise has as well for many months for all of our nurses because obviously there's just such a critical demand. So once the expedite is granted, that means that the case is sort of in a different queue, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get an interview within a couple of days or even a couple of weeks. We have some expedites that were granted several months ago and are still awaiting an interview, unfortunately. And it's really all because of that backlog at the embassies and the consulates that we were discussing earlier, that with COVID and the embassies closing and reopening, there's just such an enormous backlog that there are many, many cases in that expedite queue that are still awaiting an interview. So it's certainly worth requesting the expedite, but it may not be as quick as we would hope. But if you're approved for an expedite, it would be faster than if you're not approved for the expedite.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. The good news for everybody who's frustrated, so frustrated with the expedite process, is we definitely are seeing movement. We are definitely seeing traction. The US needs nurses. And for many companies, Kinetics USA is one of them, and the Seller Group is one of them. We, are members of the AAIHR. So there's a lot of work that's been done behind the scenes with the State Department to try and flag and highlight nurse cases. So hopefully that this backlog of expedites is hopefully moving forward and in a positive direction. Okay, Byron from the Philippines. Francesca's asking, does Kinetics have a prevailing wage already for nurses? So Francesca, Kinetics is a direct hire company. We're not a staffing company, so we don't sponsor and hire the nurses ourselves, but we have, all of our clients will have prevailing wages done when we start the recruitment. So that is the good news, as Denise said, that you'll be in the United States in less than a year. Okay, Jeff is saying hi, Jeff. We've got a question here from Julian. And Julian is asking, what is premium processing and what is the approval rate for premium processing?
Oh. Well, premium processing is the ability to, exactly what it says, premium your case, get it on a fast track. Essentially, your employer, your sponsor, can pay an additional fee to have your case reviewed by immigration within 15 days. Now, within that 15 days, either the government will approve your case or they will issue what's called a request for evidence. And if a request for evidence is issued, again, it's at the discretion of immigration to issue it. But the rate of approval is just dependent upon, if the case is approvable upfront, and if there is something lacking. So, most employers that we work with, they are familiar with the process. And so we're able to submit all the documentation we need up front. But if we were to get that RFE, then we do submit whatever documentation the government is requesting. And for us, for the most part, our approval rates are high. The cases are ultimately approved. One other thing I do want to add is that, if your case is issued an RFE, then that 15-day clock resets. And so you have 15 days for the government to review your case. Your employer and your attorney file a response to that RFE, and then the 15 days there's an additional 15 days that are given to the government to then again review that response. So.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that, because that's something that's also confusing for many nurses. I think in the more recent times, we're seeing fewer and fewer RFEs. I don't know what the panel is seeing. If you want to maybe let us know.
Yes.
Yes, we've seen a dramatic downturn in the number of RFEs being issued.
Yeah. Okay, so it can happen, but not very many of them.
Right.
Simon is asking, what is the best thing to do? Apply to Kinetics before passing your NCLEX or after? So Simon, if you have not yet passed your NCLEX, you cannot come on a Schedule A green card. In other words, we cannot start that green card process that Denise was speaking about. But I would encourage you to apply, because you might be eligible for 2 of our programs, our NCLEX scholarship, which is where Kinetics are paying for the review course, the NCLEX review course for selected nurses. It's not for everybody. So if you're not selected, please don't be too disappointed and come back to us once you pass the NCLEX. Or you might be eligible for the nurse aid program, because we do have some employers that are also sponsoring for nurse aides. Okay, Nash is saying, can you please help if I have earlier priority date, but the sponsor no more present and I don't have the document to retrieve? So can you help me to retrieve it? So I think Nash is really speaking about that FOIA approach, Maria.
Sure. If you do not have a copy of the receipt notice or the approval notice for a priority date recapture, so basically a priority date recapture, just to sort of take one step back, is where you've had a previous I-140 approved and you want to keep your spot in line. So let's say that your priority date is from 2018, as the question asked, that employer is no longer around or no longer willing to sponsor. The new employer would file a new I-140, but you would still keep your 2018 priority date, so you do not lose your spot in line. So the best evidence that we can provide to the Immigration Service that you have a previous priority date is that I-140 approval notice, because of course it would have your name on it, your former employer's name or former sponsor's name, and your priority date. If that's not available, we could include a receipt notice and then a screenshot from the Immigration Service's website showing that receipt number was approved. If you don't have that, you might have some documentation from the National Visa Center, from the NVC, showing that you had a previous case approved. And if you don't have any of those things, we can file something called a FOIA, or a Freedom of Information Act request, to ask the Immigration Service to provide us a copy of those documents. And those are, the processing time on a FOIA request varies pretty widely because they're just processed first in, first out. But it's usually, I would say, in about 60 to 90 days, we would get a response. And then we can include that documentation in with the new I-140 to request the recapture of the previous priority date.
Okay, thank you, Maria. So, and I know that there, especially the Indian nurses or Chinese nurses that had previous priority dates, have often made use of that, the FOIA, or if, scour through all your documents, all your old emails, because you've got something to show that you had a previous case, that can be helpful. Okay, Arlene from Jamaica. Oh, she's asking the same question we had before, so I think we've covered that one. Nash wants to know, Denise, if their case is filed with Baylor, one of our Kinetic Secrets employers.
What's the question?
The question, hi Denise, I want to know if Baylor paid for my I-140.
So Baylor is, yes, they have not just paid for your I-140, they paid for premium processing. So premium processing is optional. And when a hospital, healthcare entity is willing to pay for that, that's very gracious on their part, because they could technically put the I-140 through regular process, which would take about 6 to 7 months. So when they add the premium processing, not only did they, so to answer your question, not only did they pay for your I-140, they have paid for premium processing to receive a decision in 15 days. Now we're working on the project. We've had to make sure that we have all of the documents in order and request checks and process all the behind the scenes steps that are necessary to file the case. So we are in the process of filing batches of nurse cases every week, every day.
And hundreds of cases.
Yes. But the good thing is that we have sufficient documentation from the hospital to, like they mentioned earlier, there are not that many requests for evidence that are being issued because the cases are very thorough. The cases are complete with documents to make sure that the officers don't request additional information or don't challenge the case. So in that regard, I want you to feel confident that once we file your case, if we haven't already, I'm confident that we're going to get a good result.
Thank you, Denise. So Nash, no worries.
Nope.
And you got it hot off the press here, live on the show.
And we'll be scheduling a call with all the nurses next week to provide them with an update.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I think between Denise and the Marcello team, Maria and Anshu, part of the Marcello team, I think they've probably done more nurse cases than any other law firm in the country. So really getting expert advice here, everybody. Okay, Edward is asking, do you process EB2 visa? Anshu, are nurses qualified for an EB2 visa? Can you explain that a little bit?
Normally we don't process through EB2, and one of the reasons is because the requirements for an EB2 tends to be higher. So you usually have an experience component that's required for an EB2, or a higher degree level like a master's, and so it's easier. It's much easier to actually have the nurse process through the EB3 route, just because it doesn't require an experience component for the most part. It just, it usually just requires like an associate's degree. And it's just for that simple reason that we try to process them through the EB3 route.
Okay, so that clarifies the EB2. Thank you, Anshu. Christiana is asking, I have not received my NCLEX pass report and I had my exam in October 2021 and I live in Nigeria. Oh my goodness, Christiana, that is stressful. I would suggest you reach out to your Kinetics USA recruiter and they can advise you how to access your pass report. Adelbert is saying, hi, Ma'am Tanya. I'm from the Philippines, nurse based here in Kuwait. I signed with Sanford Fargo. That's one of our Kinetics USA premier accounts and waiting for my I-140 to push through this month. Yes, Adelbert. So very exciting. We have thousands and hundreds of nurses going through with Sanford. And as Denise had said with the timing, we hope to have you here in the US this year. Yanni is asking, what happens if a nurse turns 21 during the immigration process? Can she come along? Maria, I know you spoke about the Child Protection Act, but if somebody is in process and the nurse turns 21 while they are in process, how does that normally work?
So if it's the nurse themselves, that doesn't really matter. It would only be if it's their dependent that turns 21. If the case is in process and the dependent turns 21, then it would be, again, with the CSPA, that mathematical formula we discussed earlier, that we'd have to determine how long the case was pending and sort of add that time back into the process.
So it would still be that mathematical calculation.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay, the questions are coming fast and furious. I'm trying to get through as many as we can. Okay, so Balanli saying, I like your team. Thank you, Balanli. Sweet. Marisol from Oman, Olu from Finland. Wow, Gian is watching. Okay, Joyce is saying, my IELTS has expired and I have used it for the visa screen certificate already. Do I need to sit the IELTS again? Joyce, the answer is no. Your visa screen will hold the IELTS. So your visa screen is valid for 5 years, which is good news. Yanni is saying, I had a priority date in 2006, but abandoned by my employer. I have to take the NCLEX yet this June. Can it be recaptured and continued by a new employer, Anshu?
Yes. So as long as I think Maria explained this, as long as you have your either previous receipt notice, approval notice, or some kind of communication from the NVC, if you can provide that to the new employer, they can submit that with their petition and request for a recapture of your 2006 priority date.
Okay, thank you for that. So Yanni, yes, but refer to the Kinetics USA success path because NCLEX is really important for that process. Although I'm just thinking as I'm speaking, maybe you were filed with the CGFNS exam. So I'm not sure. We would need to look at the specifics of your case. Byron is asking, can you ask for an update with the US Embassy interview here in Manila? I know so many nurses are frustrated in Manila. Maria, you'd mentioned that you're seeing lots of cases coming through. Can you speak specifically about the Manila consulate at all? Oh, goodness, I think we've lost Maria again. Anshu, can you maybe take that question?
I see movement at Manila, which is, any movement at this point is better than no movement, which is what we saw last year. But, I do think that the staffing shortages are still causing a lot of the delay. But, there is definitely movement at Manila. It's just they are having one of the highest COVID peaks right now, and so I think that's a good, again, exasperating individuals to be able to come back to to work. And I think one of the things that we've tried with the State Department, trying to get them to understand is, okay, if you can't do in-person interviews, let's try an alternate route. Let's try maybe a hybrid approach, where the person can be interviewed online and then they can come and pick up the visa physically. So we're trying to get the State Department moving in a different direction. And I know Kinetics is part of the AIHR, which is another lobbying group that is trying to expedite these cases as well. So, I want everyone to know there's hope out there. There are people in the background like us and Kinetics and AIHR that are trying to work through and solve these problems. So there's movement. The hope is that the movement will continue and just get better as the year goes on.
Okay, good. As Belanle says, there is hope in big letters. Glenda is asking, I'm from the Philippines. I have my NCLEX license, but being in Canada for close to 10 years working as a health aide, can I apply, Denise?
So if she has been working as a nurse aide, it depends on what the hospital or the healthcare entity requires for the position. So, and I believe now a lot of hospitals are starting to process nurse aid cases. Now that process requires an additional step. It requires filing a labor certification with the Department of Labor. So in the regular cases for registered nurses, we file the immigrant petition for alien worker, and either they go to the consulate or they adjust their status in the United States. So it's a 2-step process. But in the case of a nurse aide, it's a 3-step process where we first have to file labor certification with the Department of Labor, get it approved, and then file the immigrant petition for alien worker with evidence of that approved labor cert. So it's an additional step. So it all depends on what the company is requiring, if they're offering a nurse aide position, and if you meet the qualifications or requirements of the position.
Okay, so that answers your question, Glenda, and I can probably add to that as well. We can definitely help you. So I know there are many nurses that went to Canada during the retrogression years and that are in a situation right now where they haven't worked as an RN for many, many years. We have many employers all over the United States that will take nurses with your kind of background, Glenda. So we have nursing homes, rehab facilities, even some of the hospitals would look at nurses that have a gap like that. And I think, Denise, you would agree, Glenda would have a choice. I mean, she could probably come on a TN visa because she's probably now a Canadian citizen, or she could come on an EB3 green card if the employer will sponsor her. And she also could apply for the nurse aid program, as Denise just elaborated. So there's a lot of opportunity, Glenda, for you. Francesca's asking, does Kinetics have the prevailing wage or the labor cert to file their I-140? I think we actually answered this question, but yes, all of our employers will have completed the prevailing wage. So from now going forward, all Kinetics employers will have the prevailing wage by the time we do the recruitment events. The prevailing wages, unfortunately, are taking longer and longer from the Department of Labor. A few months ago, we would do it kind of halfway through the prevailing wage stage, but now we don't do that anymore because we want to make sure that when people interview that they get filed as soon as possible and that they get to the US as soon as possible. Okay, so Bernice, oh, poor Maria, she's in and out. The Wi-Fi is terrible. All right, so we've got more questions. Bernice, my goodness, they keep coming. And if I don't ask your question, everybody, it might be because we had a similar question that's answered. So I'm just trying to get through as many as possible. Thank you so much to the legal panel for giving your time. We're really so grateful because these are obviously burning questions. And to get that legal expertise is just such a blessing and so helpful. So Bernice is asking, I'm a Filipino nurse here in Japan and choose Embassy Japan to have my interview. In looking the bulletin, if it's current, where will I check it? In the first column, all areas, or still the Philippines because I'm Filipino? Anshu?
Well, again, remember, so the visa bulletin goes by country of birth. So if you were born in the Philippines, you would fall under the Philippines category, which is current right now.
Okay, so there you go, Bernice. Trisima is asking about Indian nurses from India. So Trisima, you might have missed it. We already spoke about that earlier in the show. You can go back and watch the recording. And Joy spoke about the NCLEX report. I think we've spoken about that one already. Wow, lots of questions about the Indian. Okay, DJ is asking, if we opt or had a chance for the nursing aid and passing NCLEX after, can it be converted to a nurse? So DJ, that's actually an interesting question. So if you opt for the nurse aid route, when you come to the United States, if you wanted to write the NCLEX at that point, then you definitely would be able to do so. Simon is asking, approximately how long does it take to be accepted by a hospital from your date of application? It could be a day, Simon. It could be a day or a few days. As long as you've got your NCLEX, we have hospitals hiring recruitment events, virtual events every single day. So we have many, many options all over the United States. Stephen is asking, does green card application is considered based on country of birth or current citizenship? I'm a Canadian citizen born in India, currently RN in Canada, and also passed NCLEX Canada. Denise?
So the permanent residence case is based on country of birth. And as Anshu mentioned earlier, there's certain exceptions, like, for example, cross-chargeability. Actually, that's the only exception. If you're married to someone who is of a different country, you can attach to their country of birth. But for the immigrant visa, for the permanent residence, it's based on your country of birth or your spouse's. In the case of a TN, being that you're in Canada, you're Canadian, that is a non-immigrant visa classification, which I highly encourage those of you who are from Canada or Mexico to apply for a TN. Canadians can enter the U.S. across the border, and as long as they provide the right documentation, they can be in TN status. Nationals from India have to go to the U.S. consulate, obtain the visa, the TN visa, and enter. So if you have that option, that's a great option. And I would recommend that you use it, enter the U.S., because then you'll be in TN status, which allows you to work and travel and live in the U.S. while you process a permanent residence case, in which case you can use a TN to enter, work here, and then you can use the permanent residence case, your nationality as from India, or cross-chargeability if it applies, to obtain permanent residence. But the TN will definitely help you enter the U.S. sooner than if you work through the permanent residence case.
Okay, so you really got choice there, which is great.
Yes.
Anshu, we have a question here from Maria. I just had my consulate interview. How long after I enter, there's two parts. How long after I enter the country will I get my actual green card? And my daughter is on my petition and coming with me is the second question. Can she come here, get her green card and leave to go back to the Philippines?
So in regards to the first question, I see a fluctuating timeline in terms of how long it takes to get the green card. Assuming that once you enter, and at the point of entry, that you provide the right documentation to the to Border Patrol, Customs and Border Patrol. There is a packet that's actually given to you at your visa interview. You have to actually bring that packet. Do not open it. Make sure it's still sealed. Give it to the officer when you're entering. And the hope is that within 1 to 3 months, I mean, I've seen it take as long as 3 months, but I've also seen it take 1 month. You should be able to get your green card issued. Now, with regards to the second question, yes, your daughter can, as long, let's make sure that she flies into the U.S. With you. And she makes that entry within that 180 days. That's super important. And then, yes, she can go back to the Philippines and she can continue her education. With regards to like coming back and forth, I do encourage you to maybe speak to your attorney about that, because that's just something that it's on a case-by-case basis. But I think if she's just going back and forth for school purposes, you want to make sure she's still showing the government that she has an intent to immigrate to the U.S. And that's something you want to maybe talk to your attorney about how to facilitate that.
So consult on that and make sure that you're compliant.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Sanchez is asking, how many years of experience is needed to get hired by a U.S. employer, and do I need to have bedside experience? Sanchez, the answer is that we have different employers with different requirements. We have some employers that will take new grads. So if you have the NCLEX and you are a new grad, we we have employers that will look at your experience. And if you have been working, for example, in a BPO or working in a utilization review or something like that, we have employers that will consider your experience as well, even if you haven't worked in bedside. Some will and some won't. So our career matchmakers, our recruiters, as we call them, will be happy to find you the best match. Okay, we're coming into the last stretch now, so I'm going to rush through these last questions. Daryl is asking, if the applicant is previously petitioned and under a family visa, will it affect the EB3 visa, Denise?
Not at all. You can have multiple permanent residence cases pending under different classifications: family, employment, political asylum, etc. So not at all.
Okay, good. Stephen is asking, when we get the interview date, how much notice should we typically expect to be given? I don't know if Stephen's I think Stephen's referring maybe to the consular interview, Anshu?
Usually it's about 1 month.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ez is asking, my husband, who is my dependent, has a previous B1, B2 visa refusal. Will this affect his application going forward? So for anybody watching, that's the visitor's visa, right, Denise?
Yes, it is. It depends on the reason for the visa having been refused. If it's because there was an issue of having worked unlawfully in the U.S., or if there's an issue like that, then you definitely have to discuss it with your attorney so they can analyze the case and see if there's any impact. But other than that, if it was refused because they didn't know whether or not he was going to remain in his home country, then that will not impact his permanent residence case. It all depends on the basis of the refusal.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm just rushing through and trying to get through as many as we can. So Chin Yenye is saying, can Kinetics help me with the NCLEX prep? If yes, how can I apply? So Chichi Yenye, I want to get your name right. You can apply to the Kinetics USA website. You will be asked some questions. You will have to do a predictor test. If you are selected for the NCLEX scholarship, we would be happy to provide you with the NCLEX prep. If you are not selected for the NCLEX scholarship, please don't be too disappointed. Go ahead and pass the NCLEX on your own. Come back to us and we would be happy to help you. Okay. Byron is asking, is it a prerequisite that we stay in a hospital in a bedside nursing, or what particular part of the process can we leave bedside nursing? Byron is a UFL nurse. Byron, so it is highly recommended that you stay in a bedside position. And the reason for that is really for your own protection, because nursing in the United States is so different to nursing outside of the United States. So you really want to make sure that you keep up your skills, so when you come here, the transition is as smooth as possible. Angie's asking, I'm currently working in an outpatient department. So yeah, Angie, we can help you. Ezzy is asking, I'm from Turkey and hopefully after passing NCLEX, we've already covered that question, Ezzy, so check back in the earlier part of the chat. Hold on 1 second. Mike is asking about filing for the I-140. Mike, I'm not sure specifically which client you're speaking to, but typically once we've got the prevailing wage, it's a matter of collecting the documents so that we can file as soon as possible. And when we say as soon as possible, it doesn't mean right away. Maria, do you want to take the nurses through what immediate filing means? So in other words, when you've got the prevailing wage is back from the Department of Labor and the postings are done, what actually happens? There's a lot of documents to collect. The lawyers have got to collate the cases. It's got to be signed off, paid, etc. Take the nurses through what actually happens in order to file the I-140, because it's immediate filing doesn't mean filing tomorrow, right? Oh, poor Maria. She's trying so hard to answer. Anshu, you want to take it?
Sure. So once the prevailing wage is done and the postings are done and that first, step is done, then you're right. It's not immediate. It's not going to be tomorrow. It may not even be next week. And the reason is because we want to make sure we're filing an approvable case. So we will gather, documents from you, the nurse, such as your biographic information, your NCLEX pass notification, stuff like that. And then we also have to, internally, we have to complete forms. We also have to get some information from the employer. We have to make sure that they have a good financial picture to show that they can sponsor you for the position. And then we put all of those documents together, which can sometimes, honestly, it can be hundreds of pages long. So imagine like each case is 100 pages long. And then once we feel like we have a sound filing, then we will file it with the government. And so, yeah, it does take, a little bit of time. So I would anticipate at least between 2 to 4 weeks to get that case honed in and ready for filing.
And when you say 2 to 4 weeks, Andrew, that's on the lawyer side. So just to remind everybody, all the nurses, we would need all your documents. And sometimes there are delays in getting documents. So maybe you've got a passport that's expired, or you need to apply for a pass report, and that takes some time from whichever nursing board you wrote from. So all of those factors need to be taken into account in the timing.
If you don't mind me adding, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, go ahead.
And she mentioned you also have to take into account that the employer has to review the documents, and there's several documents involved. It's not just like applying for a passport. It's the documents are filed with the government. We have to make sure that everything is in compliance, and the employers need to issue checks. They have their own internal system where they have to request checks that could take a week, and then we have to request our checks. So there are lots of other steps involved that are not necessarily the I-140 or the prevailing wage or the nurse's documents that require time to gather. But typically, like Anshu mentioned, it should take 2 to 3 weeks to file the case from once we have all of the documents and from the nurse.
So just to clarify, Denise, that timing is once all of those other factors are taken into account.
Right. Once everything, because there are 3 parties involved. There's the nurse, there's the employer, and then there's a law firm. We have to make sure that we gather all of the documents from the nurses, that we communicate with the employer if there are any changes that need to be made. They have to request checks. They have to review forms. We have to make sure that we assemble the case properly. So once we have all of the documents, all of the information in line, then we should file it within a couple of days to a week at most. But even up to the Federal Express air bill, you have to make sure it's going to the right service center. All of that has to be checked because, as Anshu mentioned, we want to make sure that the case is tight, that it'll definitely get approved without a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. We want to make sure that everything is right. The goal is to get you here. Everybody is working really hard to get you here and to get you here as quickly as possible. That's our goal. But these things sometimes are not immediate. There's a lot of factors in the process. Okay, we are like on the last 2 minutes, so I'm going to take 1 or 2 more questions. Lauren is asking, is there a possibility that there will be a retrogression this year, Anshu?
We don't anticipate one. We're hopeful that there is not one. And so I know right now, Philippines and all others, for the foreseeable future, at least, we do anticipate it being current. The hope also is, and I'm sure a lot of you who watch the program, we've spoken on previous panels that, if legislation is passed, there's a hope that we are able to recapture a lot of previously unused visas from the 1990s, which would add back about 500,000 or so plus visas into the pool. And so the hope is that if legislation is finally passed at some point, we can attach that as well. And so that, but for the foreseeable future, I don't see a retrogression. But, again, I think we'll have a clearer picture within the next 3 to 4 months as the visa bulletin progresses.
Okay, so hopefully good news. Okay, Adapa is asking, do you accept new grads with NCLEX and IELTS? The answer is yes. Bernice is asking about one of the Kinetics USA great clients, upstate New York. So Bernice, we are excited for you and hoping for great updates coming up soon. And I think we're going to take our last question now from Rana. Rana is asking, if I have my visa and packet from the US Embassy but will travel by April, my passport is going to expire on October. I was thinking to renew my passport. Will it affect my entry to the US if I have my visa in my old passport? Denise?
No, as long as you travel with both passports, you should have no issue. But just keep keep in mind the 180 days. Make sure that you travel to the U.S. as quickly as possible so that you don't go over the time period that you're supposed to enter.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we have more and more questions coming up, but we are out of time. This has been such a fun and informative hour. Thank you so much, Denise. So thank you, Anshu, and thank you, Maria, for listening. I'm so sorry you were popping in and out, but we were glad to get your expertise on the 1 or 2 questions when your Wi-Fi held out. So thank you to everybody who's joined us. We have had so many questions. I hope this has been helpful. I know this has been helpful, actually, for so many nurses all over the world that have had the American dream. The American dream, as you can hear from the expert legal panel, is a reality. This can happen. There's no better time to take your NCLEX to come to the United States. We have visas available. We have employers that are excited and waiting for you. So please, if you have not already applied, please do so as soon as possible. Thank you to Denise, and thank you to Anshu. Thank you to Maria. And the panel have also agreed that they will go into the chat after the session just to see if there were any specific questions that we were not able to get to. So thank you for your time and your expertise, both Anshu and Denise and Maria, for this hour and for answering all the questions. So to finish off, I just wanted to share with everybody some of the Kinetics initiatives. So we have our free IELTS scholarship, as we mentioned. We also have our NCLEX scholarship, and we're going to be announcing the winner in 2 seconds, so stay tuned. This is a free NCLEX review for selected global RNs. We also have our $1,000 referral fee. For if you refer us nurses with NCLEX, please take you 2 minutes, go and put in your details, their details on our website. This is a promotion. The deadline has been extended to January 31st, and it's a $1,000 referral fee. We have one nurse, his name is Jekyll. He's referred over 100 nurses to Kinetics. He's going to be getting $100,000. So he's helping his friends and he's helping himself by getting some extra money. So this is possible. So go ahead and refer your friends. Please join our podcast. We're in the top 10% of podcasts in the world, Nursing in America. We have our direct hire nurse aid program. Please watch our show every Friday, Onwards and Upwards. We have different topics for global nurses coming to America. And also, if you are not a nurse and have you're an allied candidate, we can help you as well. So we're going to announce the winner now of our NCLEX scholarship. And Kinetics will be paying for the cost of Osuala Chiazi Esther, who is a Kinetics USA NCLEX scholar. Once a month, we do a raffle, and we will pay in addition to her NCLEX course for her NCLEX exam. So Osuala, congratulations. We are very excited for you. This is just our way of giving back to the nurse community, especially at this difficult time of the pandemic. Thank you, everybody. See you next week. Onwards and upwards.
Have a nice weekend. Have a nice thank you.